This happened back in 2019, when I was still living with my cousin Trevor. We'd moved in together after his parents bought a big old house out in a quiet wooded area called Ashpine Hollow. It was one of those towns you pass through on the way to somewhere else. Small, quiet, and honestly kind of eerie, even in the daytime. The house was massive. I'm talking long hallways, tall windows, creaky floors. The kind of place that feels haunted even before anything actually happens. It had been built over 120 years ago, and Trevor's parents got it for way cheaper than you'd expect for a house that size. That should have been a red flag. Trevor and I were both 17 then, seniors in high school just trying to make it through the year. One week his parents left to visit family in Oregon and offered to take us with them. Trevor said no right away. He didn't want to miss any basketball practice, and I figured I'd just stay with him instead of heading out with my own folks. So it was just the two of us in that house. Or, that's what we thought. The first few days were chill. We'd go to school, come home, play video games, eat junk food, stay up too late, just normal stuff. The house gave off a weird vibe, yeah, but we didn't think much of it at first. That is, until the third night. That night, I got home later than usual. I'd stayed behind to work on a group project while Trevor had practice. When I walked into the house around 7:30, the sun was already gone, and the trees outside had turned into tall, swaying shadows. I remember thinking how quiet the house felt. Too quiet, like the walls were listening. I dropped my bag near the door and started heading upstairs to my room when I noticed something weird. One of the spare bedroom doors was wide open. Now this door had definitely been closed. I knew that for sure because I passed by it every morning and it always creeped me out. I'd even make a point to shut it whenever I walked by, but there it was, open, dark, and silent. I stood there for a second, staring into the blackness of that room. You know that feeling when you just know something is off, even if you can't explain why? That's what I felt. Like my stomach dropped for no reason. Still, I walked over, peeked inside, and flipped the light switch. The room was empty. Just a dusty bed frame, some old furniture, and a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. Nothing looked touched, but I swear the air inside that room felt colder than the hallway. I closed the door tight and went to my room, trying to shake it off. Later that night, we were both hanging out in the living room watching some dumb horror movie, probably not the best choice in hindsight, when I brought up the open door to Trevor. He just laughed and said maybe the wind pushed it open. But all the windows were shut and the heat was on. Around midnight, we turned off the lights and headed to bed. I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, careful steps like someone trying not to be heard. I froze. My first thought was Trevor, but his room was on the other side of the house and these footsteps were coming from right outside my door. I stayed completely still, holding my breath. The steps stopped. And then came the knock. 3 soft taps. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't loud. It was almost polite, like someone just lightly tapping their fingers on the door. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I just waited. After a minute of silence, I finally called out, "Trevor?" No answer. Just silence so thick it felt like it was pressing against the walls. I grabbed my phone, ready to text Trevor, but then the doorknob twitched. It jiggled once, twice. Someone was trying to open it. I jumped back, nearly dropping my phone. My door was locked, thank God, but whoever or whatever was out there wasn't done. I heard the unmistakable sound of something being dragged across the door. A long, slow scratch, like nails, or a knife. I texted Trevor in a panic. "Dude, someone is outside my door." No reply. A few minutes later, I finally got the courage to whisper, "I'm calling the cops." It wasn't true. I hadn't called them yet, but I said it anyway, hoping whoever was out there would hear and go away. Another long scratch. Then, silence. I waited, listening for every creak and shuffle. After maybe 10 minutes, I slowly unlocked my door and peeked out. The hallway was empty, but the door across from mine, the one I had closed earlier, it was open again. Trevor finally messaged me back. "Just got out of the shower." "What's going on?" I told him everything. He ran over, checked the hallway with me, but we didn't see anyone. Still, I could tell he was freaked out too. He kept pretending it was nothing, but his hands were shaking. The next morning, things felt off. We both left for school like normal, but when we came back that afternoon, we found the basement door wide open. Neither of us had gone down there. We never did. The basement was unfinished, full of spiders and weird rusted tools. It smelled like dirt and mold, but the door was open like someone had gone down recently. That night, we pushed a chair in front of the basement door and agreed to keep our bedroom doors locked. I barely slept. Every time I started to drift off, I thought I heard whispers, faint, unintelligible voices like someone mumbling from far away. Around 3 a.m., I sat up in bed and listened. That's when I heard it again, tap, 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 not on my door this time. On the window. I live on the second floor. I pulled the curtain back slowly, heart pounding. There was nothing there, just trees swaying in the wind. But in the fog on the window there was a handprint. Small, too small to be Trevor's. And it was fresh. I slammed the curtain shut and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, Trevor's parents called to check in. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but I told them something weird was going on in the house. They said the place had always felt strange to them too, but they thought it was just because of how old it was. 2 nights later, everything came to a head. Trevor had gone to the store, and I was home alone. I locked all the doors, checked every room, even pushed furniture against the front and back doors. I was tired of feeling scared in my own house. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when I heard footsteps above me. There shouldn't have been anyone upstairs. I grabbed a knife and slowly crept toward the stairs. As I reached the bottom step, I heard something I'll never forget. A voice. It was whispering my name. Soft, raspy, almost like someone breathing it out right next to my ear. Eric, I ran. I didn't wait. I ran out the front door, got into Trevor's car, and locked the doors. I sat there until he got back. When he saw my face, he didn't even ask questions. He just said, "Pack your stuff." We left that night and stayed at a motel. When his parents came back, we told them everything. They were weirdly quiet about it, like maybe they weren't surprised. A few months later, they sold the place. No explanation, just got rid of it. Sometimes I still think about that house in Ashpine Hollow, about the spare room that wouldn't stay shut, about the scratches on the door, about the whispering voice. I don't know what was in that house, but I know this. It knew our names and it wanted in. You ever have one of those nights where everything just feels off, but you can't quite say why? That happened to me last fall, and I still get chills thinking about it. My name's Riley, and this took place in 2017 in a small town called Maple Hollow, the kind of quiet place where nothing ever happens. Or at least that's what I used to think. Back then, I was living in a little one-bedroom rental just outside of town. It wasn't much. Old wood floors that creaked no matter where you stepped, flickering kitchen light I never got around to fixing, and a back door that stuck if you didn't slam it just right. Still, it was mine, and I liked the quiet. I worked at a computer repair shop in the city, a 45-minute drive each way, sometimes longer if traffic was bad. So when Friday rolled around, I was always exhausted and ready to just crash. That particular Friday was no different. I pulled into the driveway around 8:30 p.m., threw my backpack on the couch, and took a hot shower. I was looking forward to a night of gaming, bad snacks, and not answering a single email. I remember cracking open a soda, sinking into my old secondhand couch, and turning on my PlayStation. I must have played for a few hours, probably something like Dead by Daylight or Phasmophobia, spooky stuff that didn't scare me anymore. Or so I thought. Sometime around 11 my stomach started growling. I hadn't eaten since lunch, and the leftover pasta in the fridge didn't sound appealing. I pulled out my phone and opened the app for Tony's Pizza, a little joint a few blocks away that delivered late. Their app was kind of janky, but I managed to order a large pepperoni and some garlic knots. It said it'd be about 30-45 minutes. Perfect. I queued up some YouTube videos, just random stuff. Ghost stories, creepy animations, the usual background noise. After a while, I glanced at the time and realized it had been nearly an hour. Still no knock on the door, no text, no delivery update. I picked up my phone, checked the app, just a generic message. Sorry for the delay. Your order will be on the way soon. No name. No driver info, nothing. It was weird, but not unheard of. Maybe they were slammed with late-night orders. I wasn't too worried. I stretched out on the couch, put on another video, and figured I might as well wait it out. That's when I dozed off. Now, here's where things started to get strange. I woke up suddenly to the doorbell ringing. Not once, but several times in a row, fast and frantic. It was one of those cheap buzzers that made a sharp zut noise, and it jolted me upright. I was groggy, disoriented, and still half dreaming. I remember stumbling to the door, rubbing my eyes, thinking, finally, pizza's here. I didn't even check the peephole. I just opened the door, and standing there on the porch was a man. Only, he wasn't holding any pizza. He wasn't wearing any kind of uniform either. No hat, no name tag, no insulated pizza bag. Just dark jeans and a gray hoodie with the hood pulled low over his face. His hands were stuffed deep into his pockets. Sorry, I mumbled, still waking up. Hope you weren't waiting long. How much do I owe you? The guy just stared at me for a second like he didn't know what I was talking about. So I added, for the pizza. You're with Tony's, right? Still no answer. Just this weird little smile forming at the corners of his mouth. Then in a low voice he said, don't worry. It's still on the way. He didn't blink. Didn't move. Just stood there staring at me like he was waiting for something. Even half asleep, that gave me a weird feeling. I managed a quick okay cool and slowly closed the door. My heart was beating faster than it should have been, and I chalked it up to being tired. But something about that guy didn't sit right with me. I sat back down feeling uneasy and tried to distract myself with another video. But I couldn't stop replaying that moment. He didn't have anything with him. No delivery bag. No receipt. And why would a pizza guy show up empty-handed to say it was still on the way? Before I could think too hard about it, I fell asleep again. This time, I didn't wake up to a doorbell. I woke up to a click, just a soft metallic sound, like a doorknob turning, or a lock being tested. I sat up confused. My TV was still playing, so I hadn't been out long. I waited, listening hard. No knock, no footsteps, just silence. Then I realized the front door was still unlocked. I walked down the hallway slowly and checked the peephole. Nothing outside. I hesitated, then opened the door a crack and peeked out. The street was empty, dark, and still. That's when I noticed it. The door hadn't just been unlocked. It was slightly open, just an inch or two, like someone had turned the knob but stopped when they heard me wake up. I felt this cold chill run through my whole body. My heart was pounding now. I stepped back inside and locked the door, deadbolt and all. Then I checked the back door, locked. Windows, closed, curtains, drawn. I sat back on the couch holding my phone, unsure what to do. Call the police? And say what? That a pizza guy came by with no pizza? But then I remembered the order. I grabbed my phone and opened the app again, canceled. It said the order had been delayed an hour, then canceled by the restaurant. The timestamp? Over 2 hours ago, I suddenly felt sick. If the order was canceled, who the hell had been at my door? I went to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I owned. I wasn't taking any chances. My whole body was tense. Every creak in the floor sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind outside made me flinch. And just when I thought maybe I was being paranoid, I heard it, a faint scuffling noise, coming from inside the house. I froze. The sound was soft, like someone brushing against the wall. I held my breath and listened. It came again from the hallway, my hallway. I backed into the living room, knife in one hand, phone in the other. I dialed 911 and whispered everything. The guy at the door, the canceled pizza, the strange noises. They told me to stay on the line and get outside if I could. I crept toward the front door, every nerve on fire. Just as I reached for the lock, I heard a faint creak behind me, like someone stepping on the hallway floorboard. I didn't turn around. I just ran. I yanked the door open and bolted down the street barefoot, phone clutched in my hand. I didn't stop until I reached the corner gas station, heart slamming against my ribs. The cops showed up within minutes and went through the house. But the guy, whoever he was gone. No sign of forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing stolen. They searched the backyard, the woods behind the fence, even my crawl space. Nothing. Just emptiness. I gave them every detail I could remember. Gray hoodie, dark jeans, average height, pale skin, slow smile. I could still see his face so clearly in my mind, but they never found him. That night haunted me for weeks. Every sound made me jump. I didn't sleep with the lights off for a month. I even bought security cameras and motion lights, which, by the way, were tripped 3 times in the first week after that. But nobody was ever there when I checked the footage. Just darkness and empty air. To this day, I don't know what that man wanted. Maybe he thought I was asleep and planned to sneak in. Maybe he thought I was an easy target. Maybe he was just testing the door for fun. But something tells me it was more than that. He knew the pizza had been canceled. He knew I was alone. He waited until I passed out. And I'm almost certain he was already inside when I woke up the second time. I'll never know what might have happened if I hadn't gotten up when I did. But I can tell you this, I never order late-night pizza anymore. And I never, ever open the door without checking the peephole first. So this happened in the fall of 2022. I had just turned 24 and landed a new job out in this small town called Pine Hollow. It's one of those places nobody really moves to on purpose. Quiet, a little forgotten, surrounded by woods, and always just a bit too cloudy. I didn't know a single person there, but the job paid better than what I had before, so I figured I'd give it a shot. Since I didn't have much saved up, I found the cheapest place I could. It was an old 4-unit apartment building on the edge of town, right near the tree line. The landlord, this old lady named Mrs. Dawkins, said it had character, which was just her polite way of saying it hadn't been updated since the 80s. The place creaked when the wind blew, smelled faintly like dust and damp carpet, and the wallpaper was curling at the edges like it was trying to escape. I rented Unit 3 on the top floor. The other 3 units were completely empty when I moved in. It was just me. That should have been my first red flag. At first, I told myself it was kind of nice. Peaceful. No noisy neighbors or slamming doors or mystery thuds in the middle of the night. But as the weeks went on, the silence got heavy. Like the building itself was holding its breath. I didn't spend a lot of time at home anyway. The job was brutal. Long hours, grumpy coworkers, and way too much overtime. Most nights I'd stumble into the apartment just long enough to eat something quick and crash into bed. But everything changed on a Tuesday night in late October. I got home around 8:30, totally drained. I remember how cold it was. My breath was visible even inside the building. I kicked off my boots, started heading toward my bedroom, and then knock, 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 loud, sharp, right at my front door. I froze. I hadn't seen anyone outside when I pulled up. No car in the lot except mine. No footsteps in the frost-covered stairs. Who the hell was knocking? I crept back to the door and peeked through the peephole. But all I saw was a blurry mess. The glass was cracked and foggy from age, so it was basically useless. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Standing there, right in the glow of the hallway light, was a man, maybe late 50s, wearing a beat-up brown jacket that looked 2 sizes too big. His face was off. Not in a horror movie way, just in a way that made you feel like something was wrong. Even if you couldn't say what exactly. His eyes were the worst part. Wide, watery, and too focused, like he was trying to stare into me instead of at me. He smiled. Crooked teeth. Way too friendly. Evening, he said. Do you live here? I blinked. Yeah. I just moved in a few weeks ago. Me too, he said, grinning wider. Just got the place next door. Unit 4. He pointed toward the apartment directly beside mine. I looked over. Its door was shut tight and dark inside. I figured I'd say hi, he added, waving stiffly. Then without another word, he turned around, walked to his door, opened it, and went in. Except I never heard the door close behind him. It was weird, yeah, but I was exhausted, so I shrugged it off. Honestly, a part of me was even relieved. Having someone else in the building made it feel less like I was living in a haunted house. That night, I microwaved some leftover pasta, watched half an episode of some show, and passed out. The next evening, I got home a little later. It was darker, colder. The sky looked almost purple, like a storm was coming but never quite arrived. As I climbed the stairs, I glanced over at the window next to Unit 4. The blinds moved, not like they were swaying from a breeze, more like someone had been peeking through them and let go too fast. A chill ran up my spine. I didn't stop. Just unlocked my door, went inside, and locked it behind me. 30 seconds later, knock, knock, knock. My stomach dropped. I already knew who it was. This time I hesitated. I stared at the door. I told myself not to answer it. But eventually I cracked it open. Same man, same jacket, same too-wide smile. "Hey again," he said. "Sorry to bother you. I'm just having a little trouble with the thermostat in my place. Mind showing me how it works?" "It's super simple," I told him. "There are just 2 buttons, up and down." He laughed like I'd told a joke. I thought that's what I did. "But it's still freezing. Think you could just pop over real quick and show me? Won't take a minute?" I started to say no. I wanted to say no. But then he added, "It's just so cold tonight. I'm worried I might get sick," and I caved. "Fine," I muttered. "Just for a minute." He lit up like I'd offered him a winning lottery ticket. "Great. Right this way." He walked ahead and I followed, just barely, down the balcony to his door. It was already open. That should have been my second red flag. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The unit was empty. Completely. No furniture. No boxes, not even a rug. Just bare floors, cracked walls, and a thick, wet stink that smelled like mold and something worse, like spoiled meat and rot. There was no heat. No light. Just cold, stale air and darkness pooling in every corner. The man turned around and looked at me. "It's just back here," he said, pointing deeper into the apartment. I didn't move. Every alarm bell in my head was screaming. "I don't think I can help," I said. "I really need to." His face changed. The smile vanished. His eyes darkened. "Come on," he said, quieter now. "It's just right here." He took a step toward me. I didn't wait. I turned and bolted. Ran back to my unit, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Slammed the door. Locked it. Deadbolt. Chain. Seconds later, click, click. The doorknob turned, jiggled. Then again. He was trying to get in. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and called the cops. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type the number. While the phone rang, I heard his voice through the door. Calm, cheerful. "Hey, is everything okay? I just need your help, that's all." Then silence. When the police showed up 15 minutes later, he was gone. They checked Unit 4. It was still empty. The landlord hadn't rented it. Said no one had even viewed it in over 6 months. But the cops found a sleeping bag in the closet, empty food containers, a flashlight, a pocket knife, candy wrappers, and an old notebook filled with scribbles, pages and pages of times, dates, and notes that all described me. When she leaves, 7:50 a.m. Home between 8 and 9 p.m. Alone, always alone. That was enough for me. I packed my stuff the next morning and left Pine Hollow for good. I still don't know who he was or how long he'd been watching me. But I think about what might have happened if I'd stepped just a few feet further into that apartment. And every so often I still dream about the sound of that doorknob turning. Click, click.